My piece is called Desolation Relief, and it refers to a part of the Desolation Wilderness in the Sierra Nevada of California. And I chose this image because it relates to my very first backpacking trip many years ago in this area. And it also relates to my fascination with maps that I have had over my entire lifetime. In fact, as a child, I was the family navigator on summer vacations when we were driving through small country roads in the Midwest. I was interested, as I started working on this particular map, to think about what the experience of backpacking in this area was like. And as I was creating the quilt, I thought about huffing and puffing as I hiked up at this higher elevation, slipping on scree, and also looking down on some of the alpine lakes in this granite landscape. So it was a memory and also a relationship for me. I tend to make a quilt based on some relationship I have with the subject. So because of my interest in maps, that was sort of the hook for this map, and also the idea of relating to the backpacking trip. I started out thinking first about my relationship with the earth and how I was going to use that for this quilt. And then I hit on the idea that I would use a map. I looked through the maps in our files in our house. I didn't see anything I was very taken with, so I looked online. I searched different types of maps, and then by chance, I looked in a file drawer that my husband has some maps in, and I found this topographic map of the Desolation Wilderness. And so I thought, oh, well, this is something that was important to me. So I then took a photograph of the map with my phone, and I looked through my stash of fabrics, and by chance, I found this mottled gray piece of fabric. And so I proceeded to project the digital image onto the piece of fabric, and I drew the topographic lines with a graphite pencil. But then I had to figure out how I would create these topographic lines. So I looked through my stash of yarns. I taught weaving for over 30 years, so I do have some yarns, and I found this 3/2 or size 3 pearl cotton that was left over from a weaving commission, and it had the right number of colors. And so I decided I would use that for the topo lines. The next problem was how I would attach the yarn, and I decided I would machine couch most of the yarns down. And I actually did 18 small samples. Now, these samples were only about 6 inches long, but I had to figure out how many strands of pearl cotton. I tried 4, 3, and 2 strands, and then I tried various types of zigzagging and adjusting the machine tension. And then for the blue topo lines and around Lake Gilmore, that area I hand couched. The Desolation Wilderness is an area of granite. It is at high elevation. In fact, before I went on this backpacking trip, we spent a couple days at Lake Tahoe to prepare for the elevation. And hiking around, it's amazing. There are these lakes that are pristine, and you can see these trout in this crystal clear water. But it's a quite barren landscape. I mean, there are some trees, and even in the summer or spring, there can still be some snow at that elevation. And it's a very interesting place to visit. And the area where my quilt is concerned with is actually where part of the Pacific Crest Trail runs through that area, which is a very popular trail that people often undertake that goes from Mexico to Canada. I inherited a group of traditional quilts from my ancestors, and they're all hand stitched. I can appreciate them. I think about all the work that went into those quilts, but that's not me. I like art quilting because there are very few rules. There are a few limitations, but an art quilt can be two-dimensional, it can be three-dimensional. There's so much more freedom in art quilting. And I also want to thank SAQA for all that SAQA does for the art quilt, for promoting art quilts, and making it possible for art quilts to be exhibited around the world.